So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time that you are watching this video. I am Richard Taylor, and I'm coming to share some information about the November 6th school board meeting here in Wayne County, North Carolina. Now, I attended the meeting. This is the first meeting I attended in a while, but something very nefarious struck me upon attending this meeting. As I mentioned in the title of this video, it seems like the school board is more concerned with pushing the school to prison pipeline agenda rather than fixing many of the issues that we know exist in the schools today. Why do I say that, right? Because this is the list of the agenda, right? As you see, it has A, B, C, D. That's the closed session, and this session right here, that's the general session. A, B, C, D, and if you look at D, it says alternative programs in schools, policy 3470. And so on this general session, they have a total of 22 items, all the way from A to T. 22 items that they were supposedly to discuss in this meeting. And so the only item after the meeting called to order, after they, read the minutes or whatever, or all of the formalities in which they started to address things on this issue, the only thing that they talked about were the alternative programs in schools. Now, when the superintendent, Dr. Wickert, started speaking about this issue, he was reading all of the requirements that it takes for a student to be sent to the alternative school. Now, anybody that doesn't know what alternative school is, that is a school where a student is removed from the regular public schools and sent to this alternative school for either disciplinary, most of the time it's for disciplinary reasons, or academic reasons, or they've committed a crime or something of that nature. Now, when he was reading this policy, he was emphasizing the fact that students will be transferred to this school, and they will at least have to be there for one semester. And so if they happen to be transferred on the second day of a semester, they will have to be at that school for all of that semester and the next semester as well, because that first missing one day wouldn't constitute being at the school for a whole semester. And he went on to say, about, students fighting and being suspended for 10 days and, all of the requirements that it takes to get this student placed in the alternative school, and offenses. He was going over offenses that could place the child in the alternative school. And after he finished that, and he went into a little bit deeper, but I noticed that the focus of the whole discussion process was on alternative school. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But after that, after he discussed alternative school, he said the next items E through T, which is all of these items that you see right here, E through T, and on the back, we're going to consolidate those for some other time and blah, blah, blah. Only thing I heard was we're not going to talk about them. We're going to move on to some other stuff. So, and I'm going to read some of these other items to you. But why just discuss the alternative school? Out of all these items on this paper, why just discuss the alternative school and move on and skip all of these other items on the list? Which I'm going to read some of those items on the list, and we're going to discuss those. But then, so he goes on to bring up some noble guy, who was talking about turning a ex-rest home facility into a homeless shelter. And he presented the plan, and he spent about 20 or 30 minutes talking about that plan to turn the old Renew Life, I think it is, to a homeless shelter. And he tried to tie it into like homeless children at schools, but come on. Bottom line is that's something that maybe should have been presented at a city council meeting or whatever. Like, what does the school board have, to do with this besides the collateral effects of, maybe there are a few homeless children who participate in public schools who can use that facility. And then after that, they go on to present these teacher awards, principal awards, mostly teacher awards. So they call all of these teachers, and I wonder why so many people there were there. But unfortunately, most of the people that were in the audience at the school board meeting on Monday to November the 6th, they were there to receive their awards as teachers and principals. And I saw Mr. Ray, I saw a couple of other people that I knew. But then, so he goes on to present these awards and say, well, this is, for the award for bringing your school up. This school moved up from a D to a C, or, this school moved up, the 20% to 25%. Those awards, and the teachers got up and everybody clapped. And the most schools who made the most progress was, I think, Spring Creek and another suburban or rural school, and they got, of course, they got the majority of the progress, and that speaks to a whole different subject that I'm not going to get on. But most of the inner city schools, they got their awards and everything. But I'm still looking at them because, if you've seen the previous videos about the report card of the schools, then you know that the majority of the schools are still failing with a 20% efficiency rate in reading and math. A lot of them, 20 to 25%. So these awards being given out were kind of frivolous. And actually, Dr. Wickard, he took a kind of shot at me because I walked in and sat right on the front row. I sat right on the front row, and when I got in there, I saw Dr. Wickard and Mr. West, who I both did videos about. They were sitting on the opposite sides of one gentleman in the middle of them. So when they saw me come in, both of them looked up and they looked at each other and they scooted back so they can talk around the other gentleman that they were in between. So of course I knew that they were talking about me just because of the response that Mr. West gave me when I sat down on the front row. I sat down on the front row, and he's looking at me with a face like this. And I just looked at him just like this too. I ain't blinking. I ain't blinking. So it was obvious because somebody told me that he was kind of upset about the previous video I did about his son receiving, contracts from the school board while he's a member of the school board, which, is obvious to me that there's a conflict of interest there. But nevertheless, I get in there and I sit right on the front row, and he gives me these stares and I'm giving them right back. And, but when Dr. Wickard was handing out the awards, he took a little shot at me because, of course, I'm right there. I'm like five or six, feet away. And actually, the picture that you saw is a picture that I came up and took as well when the young lady presented her award. But he made a shot like, yeah, well, all the publicity that we get, is not negative. And he looked at me in sort of a side eye. And so, but it was just hypocritical because the schools are still failing, but you're handing out these frivolous awards, but you only talk about alternative schools in the meeting, which therefore leads me to believe that that's pretty much all you're concerned about. Now, we've all spoken about Mr. Ray at the middle school and how he runs the school like a prison and yells at the students. And now we hear that the only item discussed on this 22-item agenda from the meeting was alternative schools and how to get students in alternative schools, and what is the process for keeping them there and things of that nature. Out of all of these 22 items on the agenda, only that was discussed. Then they gave the young lady, you see the thumbnail, that's the young lady who received an award for, painting that painting. And, she had Bob Marley out there. And then, they had the school board, I guess, liaison taking pictures. And I ran up right there beside him and took the picture too. Because I just wanted, just proof that, what they're focusing on in those meetings are not what they should be focusing on. Because once again, they spent about 20 minutes talking about alternative school programs. But none of the other things on the list, none of the failing schools, none of the inefficient buses, none of the students not being able to get picked up because of not enough bus drivers or buses or broken down buses, none of the structural damages in the schools, that none of the bad AC and non-running AC problems, none of the food problems. They're not discussing any of that. What they're discussing is the school to prison pipeline, how to keep students going into alternative school. And I talked with another educator whom I know, and he said, that they actually get more money. School districts get more money per student when they get transferred to the alternative school. And so now it makes sense. Out of all the items on the agenda in this meeting, that's what you're focusing on, is how to get more students, or how to keep students in the alternative program in schools. Now, other items on the list that they just skipped over and consolidated, I'm going to read it to you. This is what our school board meetings consist of. Concussion and head injury first. I guess that's important. Policy F, Wayne County Public Schools head lice policy. So they're focusing on, once again, not how to make the school better, but how to, I guess, keep students out or send students with head lice to alternative schools, maybe. The other item, criminal behavior, policy 43035. Once again, now that he didn't talk about that, but that's what they're talking about. Criminal behavior in the student, how about let's teach them well so they're not exhibiting criminal behavior. Policy, the next thing, student health services. That's good. Student wellness, drivers first, insurance for student transportation services. Why do you need insurance if half of the buses are not running and half of the people are not even being picked up? Participation by historically underutilized businesses. Now, if you don't know what that is allowing minority companies to get some of those contracts that Chris West's son got, that the school board, extends to different vendors. Organization of the purchasing function. Okay. Purchasing requirements for equipment, materials, and supplies. You may need that considering, the history of Wayne County and, the sheriff department's fraudulent activities. Employee dress and appearance first. Okay. I don't care how the teachers look and dress. I do care, but what's most importantly is, are they teaching and caring for our children? Evaluation of licensed employees, evaluation of non-licensed employees, support for McKinney-Vento families, capturing kids' professional development plan. So all of these are items that were on this month's city council meeting. But the only item that they verbally discussed is the alternative programs in schools. And all of those other items that I read, he said some statement that said, okay, we're going to consolidate these for further discussion and blah, blah, blah. Basically, he said, okay, we're going to move on with the meeting. This stuff's not important. But definitely keeping the school to prison pipeline going is very important. So, and every student, I've mentioned this before, every student that I've known and that went to alternative school when I was I was in school almost 30 years ago. Those children who went to that alternative school, 100% of them, if I'm not mistaken, all ended up going to prison. And so that's what the alternative school, and shout out to the principal over there who brought me to speak to those children. Shout out to the teachers over there at the alternative school that they call Dillard. I forgot what they call it now. But shout out to I think it's Dillard Academy. But shout out to those teachers who brought me in there and allowed me to speak to those children, and the work that y'all do in trying to deal with kids who've been labeled, but unfortunately that is the first step, towards, being, the whatever student has been there, that's going to follow them, whether middle, high school, that's going to follow them, for the rest of their schooling career. And, that's going to have a stigmatized, or that's going to stigmatize them through future interactions with, teachers, administrators, and things like that. So, the fact that this meeting, that was the only topic that was discussed in this meeting, was disturbing to me. And another thing that I noticed, that there were very few parents. Like I said, most of the people who were in the audience, like 20 people, came up to receive those awards. And other than that, it was like me and a few other people. My boy Jeffrey came, and it was sprinkled with a few others. But what was telling to me, there were very little parents. There were very little people who looked like myself there in that meeting, and that also is very discouraging, or very telling, because I see a lot of complaints about the schools, either on Facebook. I get calls about complaints at the schools. If all of these complaints are warranted, which I know they are, but we have to be at those meetings in droves and let them know, okay, look, we are hearing your face. Y'all need to do something about this. We can't just sit and let them do it, because as you see from this meeting, they don't care about any other thing other than basically putting our children in alternative schools and criminalizing them at an early age, and preparing them, or prepping them, for life in the criminal justice system. Which, once again, I've seen that a lot of students who go to those alternative programs end up in the criminal justice system. So I'm imploring everyone who, once again, and don't stop calling me with the issues. Once again, my number is 919-587-7782. But please don't stop calling me with the issues. But when you call with the issues, you have to come with me to those meetings and let these people know that you are not going to let them treat your child any kind of way. You're not going to let them talk to your child any kind of way. You're not going to let them teach your child, or misteach, or undereducate your children any kind of way. We are just as important as the rural schools who got, the most improvement of those awards that they were handing out, which was, once again, just a show of, I guess, symbolism. Like, we're doing a good job. Yes, we are doing a good job, regardless of what, the numbers say, regardless of what the news says, regardless of what Richard Taylor says. We are doing a great job, and this is proof that we're going to hand you guys these plaques and certificates, because you've made 2% increase in your scores that are still failing in many instances. You made 2% increase in those scores last year. So, real people, real concerned people can see past those statistics, and we will not be, bamboozled or sensationalized by numbers that, fail to tell the true story. So I just wanted to give this information. I've been meaning to do this for a while, so I had some time today to touch this subject. But really, I think that alternative school program, maybe beneficial to some students may be needed, but the fact that it is the focus, the only item that is focused on in an agenda full of 22 other items makes me wonder, causes my, antennas to rise, causes my nose to start twitching a little bit. Um, because once again, there is a special stipend, there is an increase in funding that the school system gets. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is. I talked to one educator and he confirmed that there is. They you get a nice pretty penny more, I think, per student who is in the alternative school program rather than if they are in regular schooling. So 2 plus 2 and always in my book equals 4. So if we've known the greed associated with the school board and school system. Not to mention, I think the millions of dollars that came missing up a few years ago from their budget that, to my recollection, has still not been addressed. So if anybody got any information on that as well, please call me because I want to get to the bottom of these things. But I'm definitely going to be at next month's meeting, and I encourage all of you to come to next month's meeting and see what the school board are talking about in relation to our children and where our children are being pushed towards rather than being pushed away from. But this has been Richard Taylor. Thank y'all for tuning in. Taylor House Publishing. Like the video, subscribe to the page, all that good stuff. Thank y'all for everyone who gives me support and encouragement every day, actually, for doing these videos. I really appreciate you. 919-587-7782. If you have any correction, information, or anything that concerns you in this community, and we'll talk about it. Peace and blessings.